Hello everyone, welcome back to Chinmoy's Biology channel. So we are here with a brand new episode of animal tissues, and in animal tissues we will be starting with epithelial tissues today. So let's get started, and I hope you have already gone through the previous episodes of tissues where I have taught you about the plant tissues, the simple permanent tissues and the complex permanent tissues. So if you have not gone through that, I am putting the link in the description box. Please do go through it, and in today's lesson please don't skip the lesson in between, as it will be a very interesting lesson and it will have very important knowledgeable parts in it. So stay tuned till the end and let's get started. So we are back with the new episode of animal tissues. So till now we have completed the plant tissues, that is the simple permanent tissues, complex permanent tissues and all. And now we are here with animal tissues. So when we breathe, we can actually feel the movement of our chest, right? So how do these body parts move? So for this, there must be some specialized cells. So these cells are the muscle cells, and the contraction and relaxation of these cells, this result in the movement. Okay, so now we can say that during breathing, we inhale oxygen. Where does this oxygen go? Is it absorbed by the lungs and then it is transported to the body cells? So we all know that it is entering the lungs, then it is absorbed by the lungs and it is transported to all the body cells through the blood. Now, why would the cells need oxygen? So why they are needing oxygen? Each and every cell, they require oxygen because the functions of the mitochondria we studied earlier provide a clue to this question, because blood flows and carries the various substances from one part of the body to the other, and for example it carries oxygen and food to all the cells. Okay, now it also collects the wastes from all parts of the body and carries them to the liver, kidney for their disposal. Okay, so it is collecting all the wastes, it is collecting all the waste from all part of their body and carries them to the liver, kidney, and it is disposing them from our body. Okay, blood and muscles are both examples of the tissues which are found in our body. So they are all tissues, both the blood and the muscles. So on the basis of functions they perform, we think of different types of animal tissues. So such as epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue and nervous tissue. So there are four types of animal tissue. The first one is the epithelial tissue, second one is the connective tissue, third one is the muscular tissue, and fourth one is the nervous tissue. So today we will be studying about the epithelial tissue in details. So stay tuned throughout the lesson and don't skip in between. So the covering or the protective tissues in animal body are the epithelial tissues. So these are not the covering for the external parts of the body only, they are covering our internal organs as well. So epithelium covers almost most organs and cavities within the body. It also forms a barrier to keep different body systems separate. So it is keeping the both two different organs, two different body systems separate from each other, right? The skin, the lining of the mouth, the lining of the blood vessels, lung alveoli, kidney tubules, all are made of epithelial tissue. Now, the epithelial tissue cells are highly packed and form a continuous sheet. So, they are so tightly packed that they look as a continuous sheet. So, they are having only a small amount of cementing material between them, and almost they don't have any intercellular spaces. So, they are having a very small amount of cementing material between them and almost no intercellular spaces. And obviously we can say anything entering or leaving the body must cross at least one layer to the epithelium. It is crossing any one layer of the epithelium. As a result, the permeability of the cells of various epithelia play a very important role in regulating the exchange of materials between the body and the external environment. So what does this mean? So whenever you are entering the body, when you are trying to enter, you have to cross any one epithelial layer of the body. So the permeability of the cells of various epithelia. So cells are permeable, but they play a very important role in regulating the exchange of materials between the outside the skin, inside the skin, between the lining of the mouth and inside the lining, between the kidney tubules, the lining of the blood vessels. So all are covered with epithelial cells, which are having a very important function for the exchange of different materials as well. So regardless of all types, all the epithelium is usually separated from the underlying tissue by an extracellular fibrous basement membrane. So it is separated from the underlying tissue by a fibrous basement membrane. A fibrous basement membrane is there, which is separating this epithelial tissue from the underlying tissue, the tissue that is beneath the epithelial tissue, right? So different epithelia showing different structures that correlate with their unique functions. So for example, in living cells, we can say the lining blood vessels or the alveoli, where the transportation of substances occurs through a selectively permeable surface. So there is a simple flat kind of epithelium, and this is called a simple squamous epithelium. Squama means scale. So first there is a simple flat kind of epithelium. This is the simple squamous epithelium. So here in your book, these diagrams are not at all clear. Squamous, stratified, cuboidal and columnar epithelium. I will give you the diagrams in the next slide, and with the details, functions of each and every tissue. I'll give you the types of epithelial tissue, their functions and their diagrams individually in the next slide. So first comes the simple squamous epithelium. So before going to the diagram of each and every types of epithelial tissue, first we will discuss about what are the different types of epithelial tissue here itself. Okay. So the simple squamous epithelial cells are extremely thin and flat, and they form a delicate lining. So the esophagus and the lining of the mouth are covered by squamous epithelial cells. So in higher classes, when you move, you will be having a practical that with a glass cover slip, you will scrape out the inner epithelial cells and you will put it in the slide, and you will do a practical which will show you how the squamous epithelial cells look like. So like this only under a microscope in a covered with a cover slip and on a glass slide, you will view the squamous epithelial cells which are being taken from the inner side of your mouth. So this is one experiment, that is esophagus and the inner lining of the mouth is also having a squamous epithelium. So the skin which protects the body is made up of squamous epithelium, but the skin epithelial cells are arranged in many layers to prevent the wear and tear of the different environmental hazards, different external factors. So it is made up of different types of layers. So since they are arranged in patterns of layers, this type of epithelium is called the stratified squamous epithelium. So this is not the simple epithelial tissue, this is a stratified squamous epithelium because it is having different layers to combat with the different wear and tear of nature. Next, where the absorption and secretion occurs in the inner lining of the intestine, the tall epithelial cells are present. So these tall epithelial cells are which facilitates the movement of across the epithelial barrier and in the respiratory tract. The columnar epithelial tissue also has cilia, which are hair-like projections on the outer surface of the epithelial cells, right? So these cilia can move, and their movement pushes the mucus forward to clear it, right? So this type of epithelium is called the ciliated columnar epithelium. So this type of epithelium is called the ciliated columnar epithelium cells. So they are having cilia, they are columnar or long or tall in shape, they are ciliated columnar epithelial cells. Now next comes the cuboidal epithelial cells. Cuboidal epitheliums are like cube shaped cells. They form the lining of the kidney tubules and the ducts of the salivary gland. where it provides the mechanical support. Epithelial cells often acquire the additional specialization as gland cells, which can secrete substances at the epithelial surface. So, sweat glands are there at the base of the skin, which are gland cells which are secreting certain secretions at the epithelial surface, right? So they are always having support of the gland. So like that, in the kidney tubules also, certain near the kidney tubules and the ducts of salivary glands, there are several glands which are having certain secretions, which are giving the secretions to the epithelial tissue, right? So sometimes a portion of the epithelial tissue folds inward, and the multicellular gland formed is the glandular epithelium. So we have studied about simple squamous epithelium, stratified squamous epithelium, cuboidal epithelium, columnar epithelium, and last but not the least is the glandular epithelium. When it is formed, when some portion of this epithelial tissue folds inward, this is called the glandular epithelium. Now we will read all the definitions with the diagrams of all these things in details from the next slide. Let us move on. Now, first of all, we should say that broadly there are two types of epithelial tissues, the simple epithelium and the compound epithelium. So, till now we have spoken about simple, stratified, columnar, ciliated and glandular epithelial tissue. Now, in simple epithelial tissue, there is a single layer of cells and it is generally found in the lining of the body cavities or organs or even the ducts and tubes. So, it is very simple. We have already discussed, and now again with a small paragraph, I need to make it clear that it is a single layer of cells. It is generally found in the lining of the body and the inner body cavities. Now, when they are coming in layers, it is called the stratified epithelial tissue. Is it clear to all of you? Now, the second one is the compound epithelial tissue, which consists of two or more layers of cells. They form the stratified layers, and in the skin, they have a protective function. They do not have much of the role in absorption and secretion, but their function is provided for the protection, that is against the mechanical or chemical stress. If anything, any injury, any chemical thing is coming over the skin, it will protect itself. So this epithelial tissue is acting as a protection against the wear and tear, the mechanical and the chemical stress. Now, the compound epithelium can be found on the dry surface of the skin, buccal cavity, pharynx and the lining of the salivary glands, ducts and the pancreatic ducts. So this is all about the types of simple epithelium and the compound epithelial. Now let us move on to the next one. Now, based on the structure, shape, size and arrangement of cells, again we are dividing these tissues into different types. So first one, squamous epithelial cells, thin, flat cells, closely packed with irregular boundaries. These squamous epithelial cells line the cavities of mouth, esophagus, alveoli, blood vessels and air sacs of alveoli of the lungs. So these are all the, we can say these are all the squamous epithelium or squamous epithelial tissue. Now next comes the cuboidal epithelial tissue. That is, these cells are cuboidal in shape. They are found in salivary glands, tubular, parts of nephrons in the kidneys, sweat glands, and their main function includes absorption, secretion and excretion. So, is it clear? Cuboidal epithelium, absorption, secretion and excretion is their major function. They are in cuboidal shape and they are found mainly in salivary glands. They are in kidneys, in parts of nephrons of the kidneys as well as in sweat glands. Now, we will move on to the structure in the next slide. So let us look at this diagram very minutely. You should look at this diagram. So here only we can differentiate between different types of epithelial tissue. So first one is thin, flat. You can see hardly there is no space, intercellular space in between that. That is the simple squamous epithelial cells. Then comes the stratified squamous epithelial having so many layers, 1, 2, 3. So many layers are there. Next comes the cuboidal, simple cuboidal epithelial cells. You can see the shape of the cells are cuboidal in their nature. Next comes the simple columnar epithelial cells. So these are columnar shaped cells. And last but not the least is the ciliated columnar epithelial cells. So they are having cilia on the top of each, and here we have have seen that we can, if there is a transitional change, they are relaxed, the shape of this cells at times they are changing. Okay, so it is a transitional relaxed state of this epithelial tissue, and this is transitional stretched stage of this tissue. So when the tissues are stretched, it is like this. The tissue, epithelial tissue, will look like this, and when they are relaxed, they will look like this. So it is clear, right? Now here at the base of this tissue there is a basement membrane. I have told that just below the epithelial tissue to support the other organ there is a basement membrane, and then comes the next tissue, that is the connective tissue, right? Now we will read about the other three types of epithelial tissue. Then in the next class we will be studying about the connective tissue. So the columnar epithelium, as we have seen in the diagram beforehand only, the columnar epithelium has cells which are pillar-like or column-like. The nuclei of the cells are located at the base. So that is the basic difference. The nuclei will always be located at the base. The free surface of many have microvilli that are present in the lining of the stomach and the intestine. They are having small microvilli which are present in the lining of the stomach and the intestine, and which help in the functions of absorption and secretion. So if there are microvilli, then only they'll help in the small intestine in the absorption process. So columnar epithelium is mainly present in the intestinal region. Now next comes the ciliated epithelium. These are columnar epithelial cells having cilia, and they are called ciliated epithelium. Their main function is to move particles or mucus in specific direction. The rhythmic movement of the cilia helps in the movement of material in one direction. So when the cilia is moving, the particles, the mucus is moving from one place to another, and this tissue is found in the inner surface of organs like the bronchioles and the fallopian tubes. Right, so is it clear to all of you? So we have covered almost all the types of epithelial tissue, and as we have spoken earlier, when this epithelial tissue will fold in between, and it will fold in the form of a gland, that is called glandular epithelium tissue. Now let us move on to the next slide. Now, this is the glandular epithelium. This is a modified form of columnar epithelial tissue. Actually, these are present in the tear glands, sweat glands, etc. Their main function is obviously secretion, and the glandular epithelium can have unicellular cells or multicellular cells with a cluster of cells. According to the mode in which they pour their secretions, the glands can divide into exocrine and endocrine. So we have already studied what are exocrine glands, which are having the duct, and what are endocrine glands, which are ductless glands. They are pouring their secretions directly into the blood, and from that it is carried by the blood to the target organ where it is acting, or where the function is achieved in the target site or target organ, right? So these are endocrine and exocrine glands difference, which we have already studied. Now glandular epithelium, mainly they are tear glands, they are sweat glands, etc. They are large cells that present in tear glands and sweat glands, and their main function will always be the secretion. Now we will discuss about one very important question in the last slide. So where do you find the ciliated epithelium in the animal body? So ciliated epithelium, it is a type of epithelial tissue. It is found in the inner lining surface of the fallopian tube, in the bronchioles. So we have spoken about all the types of epithelial cells, and we have told where they are found. Please do learn it, because in your exam you will get the question that what are the functions and where are they located? Do they help in absorption? Do they help in secretion? So there will be different types of question where you will be asked about the functions of different types of epithelial tissue. Now the ciliated epithelial cells are the columnar epithelial cells with cilia. Their main functions is to help in the movement of material from one direction to other. So this is all about the epithelial tissue. It is a very small, very short video, but it is very important, with all the important notes and important diagrams with labeling which I have given you. Please do learn it, go through it properly, and don't skip in between. And the next episode we will be studying about the connective tissue, which is a very important tissue. Then after that, muscular tissue, and then comes the nervous tissue. So stay tuned, stay updated, and keep learning with my videos. Thanks a lot for watching this.